This is episode 392 of the Rio Grande Foundation's Tipping Point, New Mexico. I'm Paul Gessing, president of the Rio Grande Foundation, New Mexico's free market think tank. You can find out more about the foundation at riograndefoundation.org. I am very pleased to be joined this week by Evan Jones. He is a real estate agent in the Albuquerque area. He's also on the board of the Rio Grande Foundation. So thanks for coming back on, Evan.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy it.
Yeah, well, aside from your support for free markets and limited government, these days it's very interesting for folks to hear about what's going on in real estate, especially because it's just so crazy out there now. You don't have to be buying or selling a home to be involved or hearing stories. Most of them kind of horror stories involving prices skyrocketing or lack of supplies of houses. But before we get into the housing market and some of the forces impacting it, tell people a little bit about your background in the industry and how folks can reach you if they're interested in buying or selling a house.
Sure. I've been in real estate since the end of 2017. My wife, Amy Jones, and I have a team at KW Realty, Keller Williams Realty here in Albuquerque. We represent buyers and sellers all over the metro area, sometimes in different parts of the state. Work with a lot of out of town buyers, especially these days as well. So if anybody's out of town for some reason, out of state for some reason, and wants to buy in New Mexico, we can definitely help. And my email address is jonesnextdoor@kw.com. Phone number is 505-600-5510.
All right. So the general concept here is that at least in the Albuquerque metro, prices are going up when it comes to houses. Not to mention, apartments, which I know isn't your bailiwick, but there's definitely, I can say from personal family experience, the price of apartments is going up as well. What are you seeing out there? Just talk about the market conditions right now as you see them in the Albuquerque metro area.
Sure. So, as most people listening will probably know, we've been having a consistently worsening supply problem over the last couple of years. We had 2 years ago, in April 2 years ago, we had a 2.5 month supply of houses. Now, I think in March, we had a 0.67 month supply. So like a 20-day supply or something like that, somewhere around there. It's just gone down. And what's happening there is that's causing, with cheap money, being able to borrow money cheap, still rates are historically low, though they're going up. But the combination of the low inventory plus cheap money has just the market has kind of eaten itself a little bit. And so it continues to be really, really difficult for especially New Mexico based buyers, people who are already in New Mexico who want to buy a house here. So we're seeing lots of people coming in from out of town. Right now we have Amy and I have 5 active out of state buyers. We have somebody from Colorado Springs, 2 distinct sets of buyers from Seattle, a set of buyers from Santa Monica, and a buyer from Austin that are all coming here for work or whatever reasons, or they're working remotely. And they're able to come in here and overpower New Mexico buyers who are selling a house here and then buying a house here. They're coming in and it's still a bargain to them, even with the increased interest rates and the appreciation just being through the roof. They can still come in here, and like you were saying before we started recording, it's still a bargain for them. So,
are they bringing cash offers? Because that's what I've been hearing.
So that's happening, moderate percentage of the time with our buyers. Most of the time they still have a mortgage, but they do have a lot of cash. And that's one of the things that buyers have to have right now is they have to have extra cash above and beyond their down payment and closing costs. Because we're seeing houses, we put a house under contract last week for 11% over list price, and there were 8 other offers. And that's, compared to other parts of the country, that's not so terrible. But that was a situation that we saw, which the house was reasonably priced at its list price, but it's in a really nice part of town, and the portion of the market that it's in, people generally do tend to have the ability to escalate. They
Right.
have extra money, and it was a dogfight. We had to use every bit of strategy that we could, and fortunately, the clients trusted us, and we were able to form a strategy that worked. And if people don't have extra cash, it's really challenging for them right now, because they're going for above list basic, especially like a 3-bedroom, bathroom house around 325, 350. Those are always, as long as they're appropriately priced, they're going above list with multiple offers. And it's really, what's the word? Demoralizing
Right.
for buyers right now, because they'll find the house that they love, they'll jump on it right away, and they'll find out that there's 7 or 8 other offers, and they lose it, and they have to get back out there again. And it's a very emotional process.
Sure.
Investing is not such an emotion. Investors aren't emotional, but people that are like, this is going to be my kid's room.
Right.
My dog's going to sleep right here in this corner.
Right.
That's a very emotional process. So people are having to like detach the old heartstrings from a house and move on to the next one. And sometimes it takes 3, 4, 5 different houses before they finally land one, and they found that they've made a bunch of compromises
Right.
that
Now,
they didn't think they'd make.
before we move on, you mentioned the places. So 2 from California, L.A. area. So
One
coastal.
set of buyers. Yeah, Santa Monica.
Okay. Seattle, of course, another coastal city, high dollar place. Austin, another expensive
Right.
town. Most of Texas is pretty reasonable, but
Sure.
Austin is
Austin's-
definitely a fast growing place.
Yes.
And then it's also more expensive. People don't realize until they actually look. Colorado is a higher
Very much.
in
Yes.
place to buy. So a bunch of places that are above New Mexico, above Albuquerque in terms of traditional pricing that are coming into the state. Now you mentioned cheap money. I would only add that the cheap money is in 2 ways. One is interest rates have been low, although they're going up, and I want you to talk about that in a second. But the other is with all of these stimulus payments and all
Right.
the money that people have gotten now, relative to the price of a house, a lot of these stimulus payments aren't very much, but
like half
there's
a
a
mortgage
lot of
payment.
money sloshing around
Sure.
out there, and we're seeing broader inflation. That's no secret
Right.
in the economy. But talk about what's going on with interest rates right now in the housing market and how that's impacting things.
So interest rates have started to go up pretty steadily right now. I think we're between like 5 and 5.25, and fairly recently people were getting 3%. People with good credit were getting 3%. So that's a major hike, and that's really pricing a lot of buyers, especially like I mentioned before, it's pricing New Mexico buyers out of the market. A $200,000 house 2 years ago is now $275,000, and it ends up being about a $350 a month difference in a person's mortgage payment. And that's a big number for qualifying for a mortgage, $350 a month. But I'm actually, and some people may curse me for saying this, but I'm actually kind of encouraged to see the interest rates going up, because I'm the timing is kind of good for certain reasons, because March, generally speaking, we expect to see a little bit of an increase. Starting in March, we see an increase in inventory, and it's been kind of a drop in the bucket because the inventory is so lacking right now that it would take a huge influx of houses on the market to make a big difference right away. It's going to take time, but the March increase that we usually see, along with the hiking interest rates, I'm hoping it'll have an effect of cooling off the market a little bit and settling down demand, so that we can build some inventory, so that the prices will settle down, so that the appreciation that we're seeing right now, which is totally unsustainable.
What are we seeing in terms of price appreciation?
Over the last couple of years, I think it's 20%,
Yeah,
something like that. And that's insane.
right.
It's not sustainable. So I'm hoping that that the demand will be tempered a little bit by the And then the competition will reduce, and then the prices will. I don't think prices are going to go. They're not going to go down, but they're going to settle a little bit. Is what I'm hoping for. And that's me. That's me caring about buyers and what buyers' experiences are like, because we work with about half of the clients we work with are buyers, and we want them to have a better experience because we care about them as people, and that we just see the process being so hard on them.
Right. Isn't this typically the time when people traditionally start looking at buying houses and moving and things? Spring into summer
Yeah.
is kind of that traditional
And
time.
yeah,
I don't know how it's changed based
Right.
on recent economic conditions,
right.
but
A lot of it is about school,
right,
about getting into a school district that they want to be in for their kids for the following school year and being able to be settled in by the time that starts. Yeah.
right. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So, are there houses being built in the area? Uh, are you moving into new areas that have not maybe as been as attractive? There's a lot of kind of older, smaller housing stock around Albuquerque, and we all know the public safety issues and challenges there, homelessness, et cetera. Are people getting more creative or dropping their standards, or where are all these
Absolutely.
people buying houses, and how do you see this impacting the city and the state?
Well, honestly, I see, we do see people changing their standards because a neighborhood that they could afford before is a neighborhood that they can't afford now, so they have to look somewhere else. And just that's kind of what you were saying, but they're willing to make compromises now to be a homeowner because there still is a lot of market confidence. People are worried about missing out on upside, and they think the market's still going up, and by all metrics right now it still is. So they don't want to miss out, so they're willing to make a compromise and think more like an investor, I guess. Like, they're willing to make a compromise. Okay, we're not going to live in this neighborhood, but we're going to be in an adjacent neighborhood that's not quite as desirable. We'll go in there and we'll fix that house up and bring it up to our standards. And what's happening as a result of that, and there's some of this actually happening in my neighborhood. There's been quite a bit of turnover in
Your personal area where you live.
our neighborhood where we live. Yeah.
Without giving away your address, what are we talking about here?
The Mossman neighborhood, so Comanche in Louisiana.
Okay, now how would you describe that neighborhood? Because I'm not familiar with it.
It's 50s and early 60s ranch style houses.
But
Pitched roof
generally
ranch house. And
considered a desirable location.
Yes. It's
crime's not a major issue.
It's not in
but
our pocket.
You're in Albuquerque, so crime is
It's
always
all
an
around
issue.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But our pocket has been, we haven't had any issues.
Okay.
And we haven't heard about any issues. We hear some stuff happening out on Montgomery. We'll hear gunshots and stuff out of Montgomery, but we've never had anything come into our neighborhood. We do have, one of the things that has been a little bit of a ding to our neighborhood in the past has been that it's in Del Norte School District rather than Sandia.
Yeah.
That's been an issue.
Yeah.
Del Norte has gotten better, but it still doesn't have the panache sort of that Sandia has. People still find it more desirable.
Sandia is considered probably, in many ways, the best high school in the city.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's a
Del
classic.
Norte's not necessarily in that level.
They have a better facility now and everything.
Oh, yeah.
But so that's been a ding on our neighborhood, but people are having to make those kinds of compromises now. They can still try to get their kid into Sandia even though they're on our neighborhood. Anyway, the point is that people are coming in who would have normally possibly bought in a different neighborhood, slightly higher end. They end up in our neighborhood because of the prices and interest rates, and they come in and they fix the houses up. So what's the effect that's having on our neighborhood and on some neighborhoods, other neighborhoods in the city, is that they're getting a lift from that. People are bringing their money in and their determination in and their pride of ownership in, and they're making these neighborhoods better, which is really a cool thing to see. That's definitely what's happening in our neighborhood. And also, some of it's also people just aging out, people that are too old to live on their own and stuff. We have some original owners of those houses in our neighborhood still. It's crazy. People from the 60s.
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of time before new young families come in and kind of continue the revitalization. But it's been really good to have happen around us. We bought that house in 2019, and it was a really good timing, for us.
Now, Central is kind of an issue. Are you seeing anyone really moving in tight to Central and some of the more seriously
like
challenged areas of
inner
our city.
city.
Well, I mean, Central's not all inner city. It's a major boulevard though, but
Sure,
Central
that's
has
fair. Yeah,
just so many issues associated with it that anything I would think there's like a approximate to Central cost reduction inherent in just being
yeah,
in that area. Are
there
you
are.
seeing people moving into those kind of areas?
Sometimes we don't end up working with those types of people most of the time that want to live in those areas. And it's not like it's a type. We don't, for some reason, we end up usually working in the northeast part of the city or the northwest part of the city. We don't work in southwest and southeast very much. And that's probably partly because we live on the other side. We live on the northeast side of town. And then we have family connections on the northwest side of town. So that's where we spend most of our time and energy. And we just, I think we kind of manifest. There are some neighborhoods over there that we've got buyers that are interested in. There's a little community that's walled at like Wyoming and Copper called Town Park. That's like a little 50 plus community.
Yep.
That's a pretty attractive place for a certain kind of buyer. But generally speaking, we're not working with very many people
Okay.
that are moving to those areas.
Fair enough. It's real estate's a unique business. It's a
Yeah.
personality, not personality, relationship driven business,
Yeah.
which
And we
also is a personality business. But
it absolutely we try to attract the right kind of people that are going to work for our style,
Yeah.
which is very much relationship based.
now you mentioned, kind of the sustainability of this whole situation. I think a lot of people believe, like you do, that it is not sustainable. And history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it rhymes. I forget who said that.
Sounds
we
Mark
have,
Twainy.
we
Mark
had
Twainy.
we had a the crisis in 2008, and you weren't in your current business at that time, but the Dallas Fed did come up with a report on March 29th in which the header was real-time market monitoring finds signs of brewing U.S. housing bubble. And
A little scary.
I think the Dallas Fed is by no means the only entity that has some concerns and questions about the rapid increase in the price of housing. We saw this in '08 and '07, and just people piling into housing like it was never going to change or come to an end. Now, to my knowledge, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac haven't gotten that wild, and some of the forces that created what happened in 2008 aren't there, but that has to give you pause just being in that line of work and wondering, is this all going to change and
Sure.
come crashing down to an extent?
Right. I do have I do have concerns. I mean, of course, we know it's going to change. We know it's not going to be like this forever. For Amy and I right now, this is a really good time. We've been very fortunate to have lots of success with buyers, have lots of people attracting lots of people from out of state that want to buy here. Attracting really good sellers. Most of our business, as I mentioned, is referral based. So we've been, we're not out having to pound the pavement to find excuse me, to find business. The business is kind of coming to us to a degree. But as we've been discussing with interest rates going up, that's going to start happening a little bit less, and we're going to have to, change our methodology and go out and find the business a little bit more because it's going to be less attractive. Demand is going to be going down because of this crazy increase, in the crazy appreciation and crazy or hiking interest rates. They're still historically very low, but yeah, change is coming for sure. This can't last forever.
Right. Now, are there new houses being built? Why isn't that? Is that a unique problem to Albuquerque where we're not seeing the new housing coming online? I know you probably don't study or know about other markets as well as Albuquerque, but you would think this problem of out of control housing prices does seem to be a nationwide problem with maybe a few exceptions. What are you seeing in terms of supply addressing the demand side of things?
It's there is new construction happening. Albuquerque's boxed in
Right.
by mountains on the east, by Native American reservations on all sides except for the corridor that goes out toward Rio Rancho. So we are seeing new construction out on the west, in the north and west side of town, and then in Rio Rancho, but it's just not enough, and it's not fast enough. And the other thing is that people are priced out there as well because of the expensive building materials. And the houses are not getting built fast enough as far as each individual house. We have one under contract that it's a new build, and that's out at Mesa del Sol, and they're fully on track. But we've had people that I had some clients that ended up buying a resale house fairly recently because they had a house under contract with Pulte that was being built by Pulte, and maybe I shouldn't have mentioned their name, but whatever, put them on blast. They had been under contract for this house for 9 months, and they had a foundation, and that was it. And that was during a time when the raw material costs were really, really high. And they wrote into the what was written into the builder's contract was that we've got 2 years to build this house. And I think personally, my belief is that they were sandbagging because they were waiting for the cost of materials to go back down so that they could increase their margin. And it was in the contract that they were allowed to wait for 2 years to have the house built. So I think there's issues with that. There's issues with infrastructure, utilities and stuff being out to these marginal areas of town, the edge of town. There's a lot of land out there that's open that could be built on, but there's nothing out there as far as utilities. And not everybody wants an acre with a septic system and a well. They want just a house in a neighborhood with city utilities, and it's just not out there yet. Oh. So I think that the amount of building that's happening is not enough to meet the demand. Plus, because of the cost of materials, the houses are becoming unaffordable.
Are you referring specifically to Rio Rancho
or
Mesa del Sol? Because Mesa del Sol is pretty.
Yeah, they're building
infrastructure.
They're building. Oh yeah, that's fine out there.
Yeah,
they're building a whole new town. I mean, they're gonna have a movie theater and a mall. They're trying to keep people living in Mesa del Sol, not living in Albuquerque, but living in Mesa del Sol. And I think that's it's like a little village, like a new village that's being built. But mostly I'm talking about the north and west part of the metro area.
Yeah, because Rio Rancho, from their perspective, and of course they've been a very fast-growing community.
Yeah, for a long time.
A decade and a half at least, and more probably. They had their hiccup in the 2008 housing crisis, and maybe 2009 struggled, but you've certainly got a lot more land out there.
Right.
But for a lot of people, and there's been at least some contemplation in the Guessing household of looking at Rio Rancho and just you talk about infrastructure, but it's not just about water and sewer. It's also about, roads. There's so
resources,
limited options to get around Rio Rancho, to go from Rio Rancho to other parts of town, because you don't have real access to an interstate highway.
Right.
I know there's been talk about putting in like the loop road Paseo del Volcan and really creating that. So anyway, it's fascinating stuff. So in this Dallas Fed report, I asked you to kind of take a look at it and see if you had any thoughts. Like, obviously what is happening now may be a little different, probably significantly different from 2008 and 2009. Do you think we'll have a, I guess, soft landing, or do you think this is going to wind up kind of being a more of a crash kind of situation?
I don't, because one of the things that caused the crash of 2008 was predatory lending practices. You could go into a loan officer, a mortgage broker's office, and basically tell them how much you made, and show them that you had a pulse, and say, I've got a job.
Right.
And they would give you a mortgage, but they were getting paid to process these super risky adjustable rate mortgages. And then the reason that it happened is because people's payments went up and they defaulted because their interest rate increased. When they signed the paperwork, they didn't care because they just wanted to be able to buy a house, and that dream of home ownership was happening. We don't have those kinds of practices happening nowadays. Lenders are a lot more careful. They've got a lot more regulation on them now. to make sure that people can actually qualify for a loan before they issue a pre-qualification letter. And I think that because I don't feel like people are going to default on their mortgages at a super high rate like they did in 07 and 08 and cause that worldwide meltdown that happened. So I do see a soft landing. I feel like I'm pretty optimistic just as a person, and I don't see a big crash happening. I really don't.
All right. Well, we shall see. Hope you're right on that, though. Now, we talked about the lack of supply, and you've been able to successfully, find houses to sell and customers to buy, and so you and your wife, which your team are doing relatively well. But there are really limited options out there, and it's got to be tough, very competitive for real estate agents to find enough houses to sell to their clients. So what are people doing in the market who are real estate agents? Are they doing other jobs at this point? There are plenty of other jobs out there. Right. What are you seeing with those kinds of people?
So I do find myself talking to and just coming in contact with brokers that will tell me, hey, I'm doing this part-time right now. I still got my other job and I'm transitioning, but the transition hasn't been as smooth as I had hoped. They got licensed a year ago or something like that, and they haven't been able to pull the plug on the other career or whatever it is yet to move fully over to real estate. And it really takes all your attention right now. So the people that are stuck in the middle with another job trying to transfer completely over into real estate aren't able to give it the kind of attention. Some of them, I'm sure, are doing it and burning the midnight oil and having success, but a lot of people, I think, are having a really hard time managing their lives and everything else that they have going on and trying to make the transition in this market that takes all your attention. I mean, when a buyer tells us that there's a house that they're really interested in, we start putting paperwork together and have it ready, because those hours make a difference. And for people that have another career happening, they're maybe not able to jump on that situation as quickly as we are able to, because we've been in it for a while, 5 and 6 years respectively. But it's got to be really hard. I've got my nose to the grindstone, and so does Amy all the time. So that's about the best answer I can give, is I think that it's really hard for people who are trying to transition and who are straddling two different things.
Market forces being what they are, they're sending a lot of messages right now about the market itself, about prices and the ability for people to buy and sell homes. I mean, my wife and I, we have talked about upsizing and possibly, multi-generational living and those kinds of things. And there's nothing available out there
that's suitable
at a reasonable price. So, we're going to continue to stick it out. And that's a market-oriented decision, just like somebody making a career change who might want to get into real estate. Probably it would be wise to put that on hold, continue, because there's a very hot housing market out there, or a hot job market. Both markets are hot. Right. But anyway.
You got to have the skills, though. If you're going to jump in full on into real estate right now, you have to have the skills to get things done right and quickly and efficiently. And if you're new to it, maybe you haven't developed those skills yet. And I would think that people should be cautious, because if they jump in full force and they don't have those skills, they're just going to get munched.
Now, these people moving in from out of state, I'm fascinated with this, because this is something that kind of became a talking point during the pandemic. But I would say that we're more or less past the pandemic. There could be flare-ups and issues, but we're more or less past it, even here in New Mexico.
I knew that word would come up at least once.
But these folks you're talking about from out of state, or talking to from out of state, they are able to work remotely, and they're finding that is working with their employer.
They're either working remotely, or they're moving out here for a new job, or they're retiring.
Yeah.
And retiring to New Mexico is a pretty attractive prospect to people on the coast.
Especially now they cut Social Security tax.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But are you seeing by and large, I guess, people without kids coming to Albuquerque, or are these people
Both.
with kids? Really? Okay.
Both.
Because, for a lot of folks, retirement, very attractive. Remote work, especially
Sure.
if you don't have kids, I can see that. But
Schools.
with the crime and the schools
Yeah.
and the challenges, and of course, Albuquerque Public Schools student population, I don't know if you've seen this, but plummeting. Partially that's just people aren't having the number of kids they were even 5 and 10 years ago.
Right.
But the student population at APS is dropping pretty quickly.
Dramatically. Huh. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I don't know what that makeup of the population is in terms of people moving. And, you're dealing with a sample size that of
Right.
people
Just
but
my experience.
Yeah.
But the people right now that we have relocating are military people. So they've got orders. So the base with Kirtland and with the labs is a strong, people will often just have orders. They have to come here.
Yeah.
And those are the people that we see more often than not, people that are moving in from out of state that have kids, or people that are coming here for base related jobs.
Yeah. And I don't know what the military situation is like, but
Space Force is here.
I know. Yeah, I know.
that's a draw.
Sandia is growing very quickly.
Yes.
A lot of new jobs coming in there. And even Los Alamos, which probably isn't as effective to you, but
No.
there might be some folks who would choose to commute that way.
Well, we work up in Santa Fe too, so
Yeah.
people can commute from Santa Fe to Los Alamos pretty easily.
So you do Santa Fe. Santa Fe is always tight because they don't want to build houses up there. There's a NIMBY. It's really strong. But what are you seeing in the Santa Fe market? Just skyrocketing prices?
Yes, very much. I just joined the association up in Santa Fe 6 months ago, something like that. And what we're seeing is houses that are, I was talking to another broker up there fairly recently who's been in the business a long time. And she said that she had a house that was listed for $900,000 and it sold for $1.1 million cash with like 9 offers. And she said the majority of them were cash. There's people that just, Santa Fe's got a panache that
it does.
really attracts people from, a lot of people. We just sold a house up there, closed on a house up there last month, and the people were coming. The guy was from London and the lady is from, she's from Maryland. And she got a job at some fancy law firm up there in Santa Fe. And they were like, this was like a dream for them. Like Santa Fe specifically, not New Mexico, not Albuquerque, not Taos, but Santa Fe specifically. And they do have a supply issue, and the prices there are worse. They're worse than they are here.
Well, and ironically, while Santa Fe's supply issues are very challenging, people who work at Los Alamos often buy houses in Santa Fe or environs because there's simply no space to build up on the mesa near the lab. So it's a multi-whammy. It just seems like the areas of our state that have the potential to build new houses, there's just very few spaces available in those houses. You would think, New Mexico, wide open spaces, as far as the eye can see. But then when you actually get down to land use and how you can build or not build, here in the metro, really talking Rio Rancho and Mesa del Sol. How about the East Mountains? What do you ever sell over there?
We have two listings under contract, one in T. Harris and one in Edgewood right now.
I would imagine the East Mountains are pretty attractive to a lot of people. Are prices going up out there?
They are. Both of the properties that we have under contract up there, they're each on 10 to 11 acres. One has many structures on it. Anyway, we listed it for $640,000 and it sold in like 4 days. And the East Mountains that's a specific pocket. You've got a very specific kind of buyer who wants to live on that much land with that much maintenance. Yeah. And the other one in Edgewood, that's a specific thing too. It's like wide open spaces type living. It's not wooded. It's more, prairie type with long views and whatnot. Both of them sold within a week. We didn't have multiple offers, but we had multiple offers on one, but multiple showings in the first few days, and then just boom, an offer and contract right away. And we expected a couple of weeks on market because of the specificity of the type of buyer who wants to live there, but it was just automatic.
Yeah.
Really surprising how fast it was.
I mean, it's beautiful.
Right.
Whether Edgewood's is beautiful or not is a different story.
I have my own opinions about that.
Yeah, it's not a ski town, like, you're not talking about Park City or Durango or Telluride. I mean, you don't have those kinds of amenities. You got potential for forest fires. You don't necessarily have the infrastructure. Water's got to be an issue for those folks. So there are some very big pluses and some very big minuses, I would think, to the East Mountains.
Yeah.
And it's a unique area, and it's another one that I've at least looked at. It's very pretty over there, but there's also a lot of issues. Where do your kids go to socialize?
Right.
And where do they go to school, and how does that process work out, et cetera,
Well,
et cetera.
interestingly enough, it's interesting that you mentioned that. The people that are buying the house in Tijeras are a family with 6 kids who are moving here to work on base, and they're coming from Guam. So they're coming from out of town. And
out of a lot of things, yeah.
Yeah, and they're coming from, and so I think the socialization thing for them is, so usually we'll see people with several kids that'll move into that kind of an area so that the kids can socialize with each other.
Yeah. Well, let's start wrapping things up here. So if people, why don't you offer, some tips or whatever, if people are buying houses, or if they're selling houses, they're maybe moving out of state or something like that. Obviously, calling you, and you can give your information again, but what other information do people need to know in this housing market?
So send me your contact information. I will get in my time machine and go back 5 years and come and tell you, hey, I'm going to be your realtor. Save every dime that you have because you're going to buy a house 5 years from now. No, it's people. Yeah, anybody that's getting ready to buy, save as much cash as you can above and beyond your down payment and closing costs, because you're very, very likely to need it. One of the things that we're seeing happening right now with all this competition is that, say a house is listed for $350, people will come in and have to offer $375 or $400, often $400. But the problem with that is that if it's appropriately priced at $350, the seller's probably not going to have a whole bunch of confidence that it's going to appraise at $400. So you have to be willing to waive the appraisal contingency or cover part of that difference, because the lender's only going to loan on what it appraises for. So be ready to give that seller that guarantee. We tailor strategies per situation. It really is very much per situation, but we're having success in this market, and we don't pressure people. We tell people how to do it effectively, and that's the number one takeaway: save cash, 100%. And if you're a seller, be ready to list. The house needs to be in really good condition, professional photography. Your realtor needs to market the crap out of it still, and expect multiple offers. We like to price fairly so that we don't because people think of multiple offers on its face as being a really exciting thing, but really when it comes down to it, if you've got 10 different offers, which are 25 pages long each, that you have to look at and absorb, that's really a stressful thing. We try not to get the most offers, we try to get the right offers. And pricing strategy really has a lot to do with that.
All right. Well, and if folks are selling, this is obviously a seller's market. Mm-hmm. Any advice for them? Just sit tight and watch it go.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's presented and marketed and priced correctly for the area that it's in, it's going to sell. But we always, of course, because I am a professional, I recommend that you reach out to a professional and trust if they're successful in this market, trust the process. Trust the process.
Yeah, it's good to be a seller right now. Of course, that's implying that you're going to move somewhere, and wherever you're going to move,
you got to buy in the same market.
Going to be a challenge. Yeah. But if you're leaving the state,
if you're making a downward move, though, that's a powerful situation for a seller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Evan, for your time and
Thanks for having me.
expertise. It's so interesting out there. Markets for automobiles, for homes, for everything. It's really unique, and hopefully we can get out of this as a country without some kind of major fiscal calamity
Yeah,
or downturn like we had in '08.
right.
All right. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Find all episodes at tippingpointsnm.com or at the Rio Grande Foundation's YouTube and Rumble channels. Subscribe to this show at Apple, Stitcher, or have your Google Home play Tipping Point, New Mexico. Thanks to Path 3 Marketing for producing this show.